You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks, one-on-one with Keith Engle. My guest in just a couple minutes will be Mackey Sasser, former Major League catcher. Probably, I guess, most prominently with the Mets. You local Northeast fans will recognize Mackey's name, and certainly Met fans will. I know, and I'm sure we'll get some great reception both live and later on when we share to the groups that let us do that. Quick shout outs to some of those groups real quick. Ralph Williams at RW Media, who does some great stuff out of Pittsburgh, has a nationwide presence, but a lot of stuff is Pittsburgh related. I've guested on his Sports Corner show he does with Smoke and Jim Frazier from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday on Facebook and YouTube. And he's also going to have a radio presence again, which we'll talk about when I actually know what that is. John Gonzalez at the Sports Authorities. I thank him all the time. Flo and the gang over at Bottom Line Sports. Greg Rawlings at America's Pastime, the love for baseball. Mackey might recognize Greg's name. Greg does some great stuff, and there are tons. I've told you guys to join that group. There are tons of Major League Baseball players and umpires, coaches that belong to that group, and it's a great group. And, of course, the group at LTS Sports, Let's Talk Sports, they do some great stuff. Speaking of DDH, thumbs up. Know you're watching down on us all the time. And one last quick shout out, because I'm not going to play the promo maybe at the end of the show, but BetUS is a lot of the National Streaming Sports. How do National Streaming Sports? We're live on Roku. All our shows are live on Roku on National Sports Streaming Sports channel. Excuse me, I got tongue tied this morning. So check that out. Get that channel downloaded and do that. But in part, National Streaming Sports shows are brought to you by BetUS. You can go to National Streaming Sports webpage, let me find it for you quick, nessp.info, and you can click the BetUS link. You can bet football, college football, professional football, futures. My Notre Dame bet down the drain, looks like, for the national championship. Speaking of which, whatever you do, bet responsibly, be smart, and don't be silly. Thank you to my last week's guest, by the way, Reggie Williams, former Cincinnati Bengal great. With no further ado, we're going to bring in our guest today, one Mackey Sasser, as I mentioned. Good morning, Mackey.
Good morning. How are you today?
I am great. It's great to have you with us here today. Major League Baseball players seem to be the people that I can get on and are most receptive to come on and talking about, their career, the game a little bit today. And I thank you for spending some time with us today. You're part of that. Are you part of Greg Rawlings' group at America's Pastime? I think you are.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, there's a ton of you guys are there and participate too. And I always ask my followers to kind of go over there and help. That's why I mentioned the groups. These guys, I'll share we'll have a live show. When I get done, we'll have hundreds of people have watched, but once I share it to the groups, we'll have 3,000 or 4,000 views for this. So we're not Joe Rogan, but we're having some fun and getting I'm not getting paid like Joe Rogan either, I can tell you. So zero compared to whatever he's getting. Oh, Mackey. Anyway, listen, you were born in Georgia.
Correct.
What was it like growing? What was your childhood like? What was baseball your big sport? Did you play all sports? What was your childhood like growing up in Georgia?
I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, and baseball was always a passion for mine. But I love football. I actually played football, quarterback for my high school. I thought I was a pretty good quarterback. I had a lot of offers, but things just didn't work out for me in high school. And, I wound up taking my GED and going to play baseball. And, from Tallahassee, I moved to my parents got divorced and I moved to Dothan, Alabama. And, when I got there, I really didn't know what to do. So I played some American Legion baseball, but I was more advanced in baseball in Alabama because I played in Florida, which, back in those days, it was all football in Alabama.
Yeah, of course.
So, I took right off and, I got a scholarship offer right away. And, I just took my GED and went on to school.
Interesting. So was there did you have any offers, or did you have a chance to get to the pros sooner? Was college the only path for you to the major leagues, or could you have gone?
I didn't play high school baseball. And, I got in kind of a little spat with a coach when I was a freshman in high school. And, I beat out everybody on that team as far as a shortstop. I played shortstop back in high school.
Interesting.
And, he wanted me to cut my hair, which, my nickname growing up was Goldilocks. And because I had my hair down to my back, and I just wasn't doing it to play on the JV team. And I look back at it, and, it might have been a mistake on my part. I was hard-headed and just, I bound determined to keep my hair. So I decided not to play baseball. I played football, actually. And when I moved to Dothan, I wanted to rekindle my baseball. And I played summer ball. I was staying active in baseball. Yeah. And I got there and got a scholarship offer. And come to find out, I had to cut my hair anyway when I got to college. So it was no big deal.
I mean, you go to Wallace Community College. I mean, do you think, and again, I'm sure your experience there was great, and I know you went back there to your alma mater to coach for a long, long time, which we'll get to. If you had actually played 4 years of college, you think you would have ended up in Division I or had that possibility?
Well, I signed out of Wallace. I was Skip Burtman's very first pick when he moved to LSU.
Yeah.
And, I was married at the time and had a child in college, and, they were going to take really good care of me. And I decided that, I called the scout that told me he was going to draft me out of LSU, but I needed to go catch. And, it didn't work out there at LSU. And so, I was working at UPS at night during college, my 2 years at Wallace College. And I decided just to go to Troy because I had a family living, dorm for me to take my family. And I was about 45 minutes from Troy. And so I decided I had to keep my job at UPS. So I was doing both, and it was way too much. And Troy had promised me to catch. And when I got there, they put me at shortstop. And I understand why. They had a guy named Ray Stevens, which was an excellent catcher that, went on to St. Louis and did some things. And it just wasn't working out for me. I had to do the right thing for my family and my life. And so I called the scout, and he told me, he says, Mackey, with the winter draft back in the day, it was a free agent draft or whatever. And he said, you have to quit baseball today because 120 days, I can't draft you if you don't. So I walked in, and Chase Riddle was the coach at the time. And I gave all my stuff away to every player. I said, I'm done. I'm going back home and go to work. I'm going to get drafted. And so that's how it all worked out for me. And then I was drafted by the San Francisco Giants by Squeaky Parker.
Were you expecting to get drafted? I mean, fifth round draft pick with what we just talked about, that experience, it sounds like that's probably not the normal path to even a fifth round.
It wasn't a normal path. I mean, when I was in junior college, everybody was talking about, well, you don't have a position. And I remember going to work out for junior mock with the Cincinnati Reds. Back then they had showcases, you come out and work out. And so when I went and worked out for him, I went to every position on the field except pitcher. When they took infield, I took it at every position. He asked me why I did it. I said, I really want to play. And this is my way out of what I'm doing now. It's always been my passion. And so, I told him how much I wanted. He said, that's too much. I said, well, that's fine. I mean, that's what I've got to have because I have a family.
Right.
And, about 10 years later, he come back to us, man, I wish I'd have took you. But, those are things that, I just needed to show my passion and, wind up, catching after AA ball with the Giants.
And when you spoke, again, you were very versatile, as you say. How did ending up at catcher? How did that actually come about? I mean, you just excelled or need? All
the scouts told me I was going to be too big to be a shortstop. I did like that step, but my arm made up for a lot of it. And they all kept telling me, a left-hand hitting catcher, you can do a lot of things. And so the Giants drafted me as a catcher. I never caught before, just got back there playing around with it, but never caught. So in single A ball, I was in Clinton, Iowa with the Giants, and I played. Charlie Hayes was our third baseman. I mean, he was we call them bonus babies. And when I went out spring training with the Giants, nobody knew who I was. I mean, they didn't. I'm coming from the East Coast in a winter draft, and Greg Littman, if you remember Greg Littman, he was also in that draft. He was right before me. And we were on the same team. And Charlie Hayes had tendonitis in his elbow and couldn't play. So I stepped right into third base, and that's how I made a name for myself. And he started on the disabled list going to Clinton, so I played third base, and he came back and went to first base, and then I played some right field because I was leading our team in hitting, and one of our catchers went down. And so I told the coach, Julian Mock, I'll never forget, I said, I can catch if you need me. He goes, oh, you can catch too. I said, well, hell, you drafted me as a catcher. And so the next day I had catching equipment in my locker, and he told me to go to bullpen and catch some. And then the brass was in town. I caught one game, caught a 2-hitter and threw out a guy. And the next thing you know, I was catching.
Would you have rather been a shortstop? I find it interesting they told you were too big to be a shortstop because Cal Ripken was pretty big. Derek Jeter was pretty good size, and they did okay at shortstop, right? Would you have preferred to have been a shortstop if you had your druthers, or you're okay?
Sir?
If you would have preferred to have been a shortstop if you had your druthers, or
I wouldn't change it for nothing. I mean, catching is something that it takes a lot of talent.
Yeah.
You have to learn a lot of things. You have to learn hitters. You have to learn pitchers, and then you still got to hit. So it's but you're like the general of the field. I mean, you see the whole field and you know what's happening. So you're kind of like the leader of that game.
It's so funny because the old cliche, and I've never looked up the origin of this, and I should have, because it's the cliche that is the most inaccurate is the tools of ignorance for a catcher. I never understood that phrase because you can't be literally you can't be an ignorant person to play catcher. You've got to have everything going on and know everything that's going on the field at all the time. Well,
you're watching the field, but you're also watching hitters. When they're stepping in the plate, one at bat, they may be in the back of the box, and you're doing something to them that they're trying to figure out, and then you have to watch it. I mean, they may be away from the plate, close to the plate. You're just figuring out all kind of things. So you're watching them and watching everything you can do. You're also watching the tendencies of your pitchers and base runners, but it's a place where you're in the game at all times.
And I'll get some comments up here as if they're relevant. If they're not, guys, I'll go back to them before we're done with Mackey, as always. AC talks about catchers are usually the best all-around athlete on a baseball team.
Okay. What you think?
I don't want to catchers in front of Mackey, but I don't know if that's always true. But
the catching is a very tough job. I had both my hips replaced. I've had like 9 knee surgeries, ankle surgery, elbow surgery, but it's just something about it. It's like being the quarterback on a football field. You're the quarterback. You don't know everything. You learn from mistakes. Like when I started catching, that's how I learned how to catch, is from mistakes. But fortunately, I learned how to catch in AA and AAA and then in the big leagues, because there you have pitchers that know what they're doing with the ball and can really help you out. The key is just, like I learned from other catchers. When I played in the Texas League, I had Charlie O'Brien, Alomar Jr. I mean, we had some really good catchers that, to mirror things with. When I was in the big leagues, I had LaVarria with the Pirates. I had Bob Brentley and Bob Melvin with the Giants. And then I had Gary Carter, which Gary Carter taught me a lot, just sitting there watching him. He might have been a little older, but he was wise and he understood the game.
Still play a little bit just to give AC a chance to follow up here. He's talking about how they need balance and strength and definitely more stamina than other positions, and they have to throw. So
that's true. I mean,
that's also
it's a trying game. I think that's why a lot of defensive catchers, why they don't hit, because they're so tuned into being that guy, they don't hit. And then you have guys, you take Mike Piazza, which is a great ball player. He wasn't the best catcher in the world, but he could really hit. And his job was to hit and drive in runs. He may give in a few, but that was his job. And I think the reason I was successful at the plate when I was catching, earlier in my career, I was a very aggressive hitter. And I thought I was a very aggressive catcher until, the throwing problem came along. And then the thinking process totally changed to the throwing problem instead of all the things I should be doing.
Yeah.
So
I want to get into that in a little bit too. Danny Fuller out in California says, "Good morning, hacker," and some guy named Keith. Was that your nickname? Hacker, or is he making that up on me, Danny? I gotta fact check Danny now and again.
I was known as the hacker.
You were the hacker, based on what we just talked about. Your aggressiveness at the plate.
That's right.
Okay, that's why I figured that comment was relevant at the time. So, outside of baseball a little bit. So you said you grew up in the Southeast. Born in Georgia, raised in Florida. Then
Right.
What was it like getting out to places like Fresno, Phoenix, and Vancouver? Was it a culture shock and adjustment?
Yes, it really was. I mean, now the kids are pretty much more taken care of. They get the free meal, they get all the stuff. I mean, we went out there on $650 a month.
Ugh.
And, we had to live with roommates and share meals and do things. But it wasn't really a shock. I loved going to different places. To this day, I still like doing it. Phoenix, I got there and it was like when I flew in, it was at night. So it was one big valley, just lights lit up everywhere. And so that was kind of neat to me. And, I always look forward to going to new places and meeting new people and doing new things. And that's how I looked at it. The first time I flew into New York, I was with the Pirates. And, I got to sit in the bump seat up there landing in LaGuardia. I mean, unbelievable, the skyline, And then, I played there that year, and then I get traded. And I just had a baby in spring training. So my wife and my mother-in-law had to drive up through New York and everywhere else. But I was amazed at the people and the buildings and all the stuff.
Yeah, it had to be. And then you get to the big leagues. As you mentioned, I mentioned your minor league cities, and you started to talk about the major league cities as well, even San Francisco and Pittsburgh. These are cities, right? And as you go through the minor leagues, were there people that were big influences as you headed towards your major league debut? Were there minor league managers or players that influenced your progress?
I have to say, when I was with the Giants, Jimmy LaFever, if you remember him, and Dusty Baker and Chili Davis, they all kind of took me under their wing and really taught me a lot of things. When I was with the Giants, the first time I went to instructional league, which was after my first year, because that's when they were going to teach me to catch.
Yeah.
Timmy Blackwell, if you remember the catcher with a long beard,
yeah.
He was my guy. He worked with me every day. When I went on the road, he went on the road with me. He taught me how to catch. And, before I even played a game, I was out there 2 or 3 hours with him on the road. We were working, doing on bunt defense or bunts, blocking balls, doing all the things we need to do, how to set up. And, he spent that year in 86 with me. But when I first went to instruction league in 84, or it was 84, I walk in the locker room, you got Willie McCovey, Willie Mays, and Bonds, Bobby Bonds. They're in our locker room. And so those guys were there, just to talk to the kids that were in instruction league. I mean, it was an amazing organization. But as I was coming up, Bob Brentley and Bob Melvin kind of took me under their wing. I remember my first big league camp, Roger Craig was our manager, and he brought in 52 pitchers. That was his first year trying to figure out, well, Bob Brentley and Bob Melvin wasn't going to catch him. So you got Mackey Sasser and a couple more catchers in the bullpen. That's all we did all day long. We caught bullpens, and by the end of the day, you're completely wore out.
Yeah.
But, they would talk to me and said, you're learning. You're Bob Brentley, you're learning, son. Just keep doing what you're doing. I hate you doing it. But by the end of the time when I got sent down, I had a whole locker full of nothing but bats, batting gloves, and shoes. I mean, when I say a whole locker, completely full. But they always, Bob Melvin called me and just talked to me and asked me how I was doing. And, Brentley was the main guy. And they stayed in touch with me. They kind of mentored my stuff. And Chili Davis, stayed in touch with me all the time.
I've been trying to get Chili on this show, and I haven't been able to connect.
He's a hard guy to tie down.
If you have any pull, send him a message and tell him to respond.
He's a really good guy.
I'm sure he is. I remember him with the Yankees very fondly. I'm a big Yankee.
That's right.
It knows from my mug. Sorry about that, Met fans.
That's okay. Don't bother me.
Everybody here knows. Didn't fall. I was worried you just dropped over there.
No, my iPad fell.
Okay. So you get called to the major leagues, and geez, you spent all this time going through the Giants organization. You get to play 2 games and you get traded. What's that feeling like as a young guy, young family,
I
spent some time with the Giants.
It was heartbreaking because I came up with all those guys.
Yeah.
You know, I was a number 2 prospect behind Terry Mulholland in the organization, and I got up and I got to I played in one game. On that stint, I got sent up for 2 weeks when Bob Millen went on the disabled list. And I played against the Pirates, and I didn't get a hit, but I hit the ball hard all 4 times. And I got sent out, and I'd had Wendell Kim was my manager pretty much through the minor leagues, except 1 year. And he called me in and said, "Mac, I don't know why in the hell they did this, but they just traded you to the Pirates." And I didn't understand it. I mean, for a week, I was just really just down, disappointed. I got with my new team, which I really enjoyed. I just didn't understand it, the business side of the game.
Yeah.
And it was all about business. They got Don Robinson.
Pretty good pitcher.
And they were in a playoff run. And as you get older and wiser, you understand what's really happening in the organization or what's happening in Major League Baseball. I mean, they had an opportunity to get in the playoffs and win something. So I was the guy that they wanted. The Pirates wanted. So.
And what was your experience like once you got to Pittsburgh? Did you have to leave your family? Where was your family at this time? Were they settled in San Francisco? I know you weren't up.
No, we're still in Phoenix, Arizona. I was in AAA.
Okay.
It was a great experience. In 1985, when we won the California League in Fresno, Will Clark came with us, and we're always talking about Will. He held out a little bit for money, and he's not going to be able to hit with a wood bat. He's not going to be able to do this. Well, he gets there the first game, he goes oppo in center field, and we became friends because he was a kind of an arrogant Louisiana guy, and he had every right to be. He was thunder and lightning and all the stuff he was, but we became really close. And he took me with him to TGI Fridays one day. He said, "Come, I want you to meet somebody." And I went with him, and sure enough, Michael Jordan's sitting there. They got to know each other over the Olympics, and they had a really good conversation. And long story short, when I got to Pittsburgh, I got there right at game time, and Michael Jordan was throwing out a basketball for first pitch with the Pirates. So and I got to meet him, and over a year, a few years, we played a little golf and did some things together. But when I got to Pittsburgh, I really didn't want to leave Pittsburgh when I got traded to the Mets. And the reason being was, we got Jim Gott in that deal too, came over with me.
Yeah.
And, we won 20 out of our last 25 games. And you could tell that team was really fixing to be something. I was never going to start over Mike LaVallee, but just being a part of that team and that atmosphere, you knew that things were supposed to start clicking for them. And when I got traded to the Mets, they already won the World Series. They come off just in 87 off a so-so year. In 88, it was the last, we lost our first baseman, and I got traded for Randy Milligan, and my wife was in labor at the time, and I got there like 2 days later than I was supposed to be there because she was in labor for like 30 hours. So I fly into the Mets at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I got my bag and going into the locker room. David Johnson, "Where you been, son?" Which he knew. I think he knew where I've been, but anyway, he said, "You're going today. We're going to play Baltimore. You're going to play today. You're going to start." I hadn't had no sleep. So I get off the bus. I play 4 innings against Baltimore. I throw out Cal Ripken Jr. at second. They put on a hit and run. I got a hit, and he shook my hand and said, "Go get on the bus and get some rest, son. You made my team." And that's how that all started. So that was a great thing.
That's cool. Listen, I do, just to make a comment, Danny, I see your comment about community college baseball. We're certainly going to get into that a little bit. And I'll mention for Rick's benefit, Rick Sherlock, we'll get into a little bit about Keith Griffin, who I know Rick and Mackey is good friends with. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward here. So as you get to the Mets, you said they'd won a World Series 2 years before.
Right.
Thought this was going to be a dynasty. In '88, they have a really good year, but go out to the Dodgers, who are a big surprise in that postseason.
It was all of us
beating the A's, and you guys kind of. I remember Mike Scioscia's big home run, and I remember that series pretty well. What was missing with that team that they couldn't get over the top? Not just that team, but the World's. You weren't there in '87, obviously, the year after the World Series, but you were big. A lot of those guys were still there, '88, '89. What went wrong with that team that they weren't a big dynasty? Do you think?
We had a really good year in '88. I mean,
Yes.
it was an exciting year for us. I mean, we played well. We beat the Dodgers 11 out of 12 times. And, Oral Hershiser had a 59 inning no hit, or not a no hit, no run scored for everything. And, I being a coach in college, I understand Davy Johnson's moves and what he did. I mean, it's the gut tells you a lot of things. I think the one mistake we made in the World Series, in the National League playoffs, was when Doc was pitching a hell of a game. And Doc got on me about this down in fantasy camp because I brought it up. I mean, this is just what I thought. We had Randy Myers up in that inning. We had two left-handed hitters going up against him. We had Randy Myers hot. And Doc, I forgot how many pitches it was Shelby, I think it was. He finally walked him. And he was pitching well, but we had lefty on lefty. And I thought we should have brought in Randy Myers. I know Doc Gooden was the superstar of the time, and which to this day we talk about. We're good friends. We talk on the phone. But that was the one thing I thought that turned around our series. And but you can't, David would tell you, I went with my best guy, and that was my gut. And that, as a college coach, that's how you got to do it too. I mean, the same thing. But that was one mistake we made, and Oral Hershiser beat us 3 times. And I'm sorry, it keeps slipping.
That's okay. As long as it's not you falling down, I'm okay with it.
Anyway, that was one thing. We win that game, we go up 3-1. And it wasn't in the cards for us. I mean, LA was playing well, and we just couldn't beat them. We lose that first game with David Cohn. Didn't pitch well the first few innings, and game over. Earl Hershiser shoved it.
Yeah, that was a team of destiny. I mean, gosh,
it was. I say the same thing. I mean, we beat them 11 out of 12 times, and I don't know. We didn't go in there cocky and arrogant. We went in there as we always did, and we played hard. We just couldn't get it done.
I mean, if you play that series 10 times, you're probably going to win at 9. And the same
You're
thing.
Exactly right.
Same thing with the A's after that. I think it would have been the same kind of result, but just momentum breakers. We talk about momentum a lot. And
That's
I think
right.
Some people poo-poo it, but that social home run changed the whole momentum. And then the World Series, obviously, Kirk Gibson gets one at bat and changes the whole series around in Game 1.
That's right.
And it means something, I think, in sports, especially in baseball. I think it's huge. You talked about Doc and Darryl was on that team, and you still had Carter and Hernandez. And I mean, there was a lot. This was a year after I think Doc first went to rehab, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, did the team know? Did you guys know that the depths of Darryl and Doc's maybe issues at that point in time?
I don't know. I mean, it was kind of hush hush. I mean, I can't speak for front office or anybody else. I don't know. I mean, it's I really didn't know Darryl was that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, Doc was straight then because we're getting drug tested.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a shame. Darryl Strawberry could have been one of the greatest players ever. I mean, he had the tools, the talent. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, people ask me about Darryl. Who was the best player I played with? Because I played with Bonds. I played with a lot of players. I said Darryl was right up there with every one of them. When his game was on, he could launch it either way. It wasn't really tiring shots. I mean, line drives, he would just, crush. And we always laugh when people try to pitch him away because that's really where his power was. He could drive the ball a long ways. And then, Doc was a great pitcher. I think, to me, the guy that really held that team together is in the booth with him right now, Keith Hernandez. He was like a manager on the field. I mean, he saved Davey and them a lot of visits to the mound. I mean, he just knew the game, and he kept a lot of things together. And there was a lot of jealousy there. When you get a lot of high-dollar players, there was a lot of jealousy there, and you could see it. And, it showed on the field and off the field sometimes. But when it came to good team, that was one of the best teams that you could have actually put together because you had guys that were just rough little rednecks. You had superstars. You had it all. And, in 89, they started just, taking that team apart a little bit. And, it just never got back to where it was for a few years.
Was Kevin Mitchell on the team when you got there, or was he already gone?
No, sir. He was already gone.
He was already gone. I interviewed him about a year ago, and I know that I've read over the years that, Kevin got moved on because the team thought he might have been a bad influence on Doc and Daryl.
Right.
And he told me pretty straightforwardly, he's like, I was just a kid. He says, how was I going to be a bad influence on those guys? Because he disagreed with the fact that he should have been traded for that reason. You weren't there, so you probably can't speak to that, obviously, but I just wondered if you'd happen to be there. He was very adamant about the fact that I wasn't the problem. It was other guys.
That's right. It's who you socialize. The problem is who you socialize with off the field.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's that's the key. And your teammates are your teammate. They're going to be there and fight for you every day, even though they okay, we might all do something together and get in some, not trouble, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the people off the field is what drags you down.
What was your relationship like with Davey? You make his team off of a couple of bats. That's a pretty good start, I guess. But what was your relationship with him, and how did you feel about his hold on that team? And
well, Davey was he was a veterans manager. I mean, he was the players guy. Davey believed if you go out and play, do whatever you want to do, and that's how it was. I just want you to play for me every single day. And he really didn't bother anybody. He just kind of laid back and let you play and do your thing. And as long as you did your job, great. So that could be one reason why some of it got out of hand. But other than that, I never had a problem with Davey.
He was a player, and there was some people, I think at the time, I remember, again, reading, I was obviously not close to this team like you were, that he might have been too easy on the veterans. And, there was a documentary, I can't remember the name of it now. You may have seen it. ESPN 30 for 30 did.
That's right.
For the life of me, I can't remember the name of it. It was really, really good about that era.
Right.
And that things kind of just got a little too lax.
Well,
you were given.
When you let things go on, it's like me coaching college ball. You let things go on with a group of guys, and then the other group of guys don't like, and it just leads to worse things. And it kind of went that way. That's the way it went.
As they start to break that team up, Davey gets fired. Buddy Harrelson comes in. You guys have he has a pretty good run, I think, after they let Davey go. I feel like you guys were maybe a couple of games under 500 and played really good ball under Buddy. In 90,
it was 90.
90. I think your best season with the Mets too would probably have been 90, right. I'd say, right? Did you enjoy playing for Buddy, and did you think that team was going to maybe build off of that?
Well, I think we played really well right up to the All-Star game. Well, I mean, we come a long ways from where we're at. I know I was really hot. Dave Magna was hot.
Yeah.
We were getting big hits. We were making pitches when we needed to, playing defense. And after the break, we just kind of filtered out. I think we had a few injuries, myself included, and we just couldn't fulfill that second half like we needed to. We couldn't keep that run going. And, after that, in 91, Buddy was gone, Tolberg come in, and it really went to shit. It really went to shit then.
Did they just go the wrong way trying to bring in?
They did. They went the wrong route. You got Bonilla in there fighting with Tolberg. Tolberg wasn't the right guy for New York, I can tell you. And I told him that personally. He told me, Mackey, I know you didn't get to play like you wanted to, and I wasn't trying to screw you. And I said, well, I'm not trying to screw you either, but you won't last here another year. And I think he lasted the first month because he was trying to do too much. He was an impressor instead of just doing what he needed to do. Yeah. And, it just don't work in New York.
There's no Mackey Sasser day like there's a Bobby Bonilla day, is there?
I wish. We all wish that, don't we? I get called. It's Bonilla day. It's Bonilla day. So
I really think the Mets should. I think the Mets should really go all out and just have a big party at the.
They ought to. They ought to do it on that day.
They do it out and just embrace it, right? I mean, why not? He made a mistake. He's laughing all the way to the bank, but
yes, he is.
What were those guys like? I mean, again, the team failed. I think Bob Clappish wrote a book called the Worst Team Money Could Buy, if I'm not mistaken.
I was in that book too.
And What was it like? I talked to Brett Saberhagen about those times. He was on the show a few weeks back, and why didn't it work? They just the personalities clashed. There was a lot of great players on that team.
Yeah, there was. You talk about Viola. You talk about a lot of guys back. A lot of guys were good on that team. We just couldn't. It seems like we never had that 1 through 9 that could consistently do what they needed to do. We had the big, Greg Jeffries. They built him up to be this next hero, and they were getting rid of guys, and he was just a ball player there. It's hard to play in New York. I mean, you got people hollering at you every day, all day. If you can't channel it out, it gets to you. You look at today's time, some of those guys that get traded to Mets have a hard time while they're there. But you got to be able to say, pretty much F it and move on.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't do that.
That's a great point. I talk about, I guess, on a lot of other podcasts, and I have other shows besides the interview show where it's more commentary. And I always talk about not everybody can play in New York. And
you can't.
There's guys that are like, that's just nonsense. Yeah. They talk about Aaron Hicks with the Yankees a couple of years ago. He got a big contract, had one big year, got a big contract, and he just couldn't play in New York. He goes to Baltimore and he really goes off. And I said,
that's right.
New York.
A little more relaxed. Well, New York is a place where it can break you or make you.
Yeah.
And you got to have nerves of steel. You can't wear it on your shoulder. You got to have nerves of steel. And, they used to ask me, Mackey, what happened? I said, I don't know what happened. I didn't play today. You just throw it back on them or just let it go or just be nice. And it didn't bother me one way or the other. I wanted to, one thing about me, I wanted to prove that I was good enough to play there. And so it didn't bother me at all.
Danny, I'll let Danny bust me here because he loves to say stankies and hollers at yeah, because I get on the team. I mean, I'm a fan, but I don't wear just rose-colored glasses. If there's issues, I talk about them. I want to be
That's
wrong.
Right.
I want to be wrong, but when I see problems, I'm going to mention them. So the next move you make is your own. You decide to leave the team. Did you want? I mean, you didn't see a chance for you to play? Did you? Was your career?
They didn't want me back.
Oh, so your decision.
Tolberg didn't want me back.
I know you signed as a free agent.
I mean, I would have signed. I tried to get my agents to sign and get me to sign because I'd like to stay there, and do what I do. I had the throwing problem going on, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit. So that happened in 88, 87?
It happened in 87.
I know you had a collision with Jim Presley before that. Did that play into it? What do you think?
Well, no, it started in 87 in Calgary, Canada.
Yeah.
I was catching. It was really cold. I mean, early in the season. I took a foul tip off my shoulder. Should have come out of the game. I didn't. My manager didn't want me to come out. So I stayed in the game, and I started flipping the ball. And I could never get out of the flip. But, come to find out, I really messed up right there in my rotator cuff. I busted some stuff in there. And it just after that, it just meant I couldn't get it back together. Yeah. That's where it started. But I got it back together enough where, I was still throwing guys out, I was still doing the stuff. And I got it back where I could, get it back to the pitcher and do whatever. But the incident in Atlanta really, really messed me up. It hurt my ankle really bad. And they didn't want to DL me, so they taped me like I had a cast on my ankle. So I couldn't rock forward to throw the ball. And so when I started just trying to stay there in a squat position instead of getting up and down, I couldn't really get to my feet. Your ankles go up under you when you throw. When you're down and you throw, I couldn't do that. It was taped like solid.
Yeah.
I mean, I was hitting 371, and they didn't want to take me out of lineup. So I got in that bad habit of doing it. And when the fans got involved in it, it really started messing with my head. Then it started going. I was having a hard time throwing the ball around and just little stuff. And I worked with more people. I worked with more psychologists, shrinks, priests, trying to fix me. And no one could fix me. And and when I got to college, I was struggling throwing batting practice. I was scared it was going to hurt a kid.
Yeah.
When I threw it really hard, I was fine. But when I was just trying to get it over the plate, I couldn't do it. So in 2005, a friend of mine from Major League Baseball called me and said, I want you to come up here and meet these guys and work with them some. And he said, I know it's after the fact, but I want you to come up here and do this for me. And so I did. I went up there and worked with them. And the thing that they did different than everybody else, they didn't try to fix the problem. They tried to fix Mackey Sasser. And it was like shocking. If you see the video, I mean, I sat there for 3.5 hours and I appear to have tears in my eyes of some of the stuff they did. But, you know, ever since that point, I could throw batting practice. I could do things. They took all that off of me. It was like an elephant on my back. And they just kind of got it all off of me because they worked with my trauma part of my body. And, you know, I still send people, those guys all the time. I mean, when I was coaching in college ball, I'd get emails from people, just their kids this, their kids that, and I just send it to them. Finally started sending me a check.
Obviously, that affected your career.
It did a lot. It affected everything.
I mean, do you have regrets? Do you think your career would have been something different if that never happened? Whether it was in New York,
I think yes. I think I would have maintained my 300 batting average. I think I'd have still thrown people out, but it just wasn't meant. It wasn't meant for me.
Yeah.
You know, the good Lord just didn't want it to happen. It didn't. But you know, He placed me in a place where I thought I was going to be for just a couple of years because I wanted to get back in pro baseball and coach and manage. And I wound up staying at Wallace College for 25 years, and the best thing I ever did. Yeah. I mean, was the money like crazy? No, I made good money, but just teaching kids and doing the things I did, I really enjoyed it.
You did stick around a while trying to make it work, right? I mean, you went to the Mexican League, you were back to the minor league.
That's right. Well, it comes a point in your career where you say, you know, heck with it. You know, I still had the same agents, and when I got the job at Wallace, I was there about a half a year, and Keith Miller, which was one of the agents, you know, he played with me. He called me, Mac, I got you a place to go over and play in Taiwan. We can get you to Japan. And I had a long thought process what I want to do. I mean, it took me about 24 hours, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to stay with what I'm doing. I'm happy where I'm at. I'm not going to go through all that stuff again. And this is what I'm going to do. And I stuck with it. So I have no regrets in my life at all whatsoever. I have, since, you know, I have 7 children, and I have 5 of my own, and I've raised 2 of my stepkids where their father passed away. So I have no regrets whatsoever.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you did some good work. I'm going to put this message up now that I've been saving to Danny. Oops, is that the right one? Yeah. Danny talks about loving community college athletics. He's a big Riverside Community College booster since 1979. He knows that you're a legend in Alabama for coaching the Wallace Community College for 25 years, as you mentioned. And he sees that. Are you still the athletic director now, by the way?
No, I totally retired.
I thought you had, yeah.
You know, for the last 2 years, I haven't really. You know, I built a new house down at the beach, and I've got another house over in Apalachicola, Florida, where we've been working on. It's about 6 acres on the actually it's 7 acres right on the bay, and I'm gonna eventually move back over here when I slow down a little bit. But you know, right now, you know, I've got an opportunity. You know, Todd Pratt, if you remember Todd Pratt.
You remember Todd Pratt, yeah.
We're good friends, and you know, we do a lot. We're fixing to go down to fantasy camp for 3 weeks, but they've made me an offer, and I know they've made him an offer to go coach out in the independent ball in Montana with the Glaciers, and you know, I'm thinking about doing it. You feel the itch to get back in the dugout? Is that what you're saying? I don't. You know, yeah, kind of. You know, I've been away from it for a couple of years. You know, the last 3 years of college baseball I really didn't miss. The kids started changing on me. Yeah. And, you know, I'm old school. And I've got guys in the minor leagues now still call me about hitting and stuff. I do old school stuff. I don't believe in all that lift. I don't believe in all the angles. I want to get you level. You know, striking out in college, you're never going to get anywhere. So, anyway, but it just kind of, you know, my last few years, it just kind of went. It was going not in the right path for me. That's all. I'm not going to get on anybody or anything about kids.
Yeah, that's fine.
They changed.
The world's different today, and you know
that's right.
The generations are certainly different for sure, for a lot of reasons that we don't have to get into here, obviously. but you do spend a lot of time there. And we in sports in general, college football, college baseball, whatever it is, we focus on the highest levels, right? And where the attention is. But at the lower levels, or they're not, it's not that it's not important. A lot of those kids are going to community colleges before to get their grades up, to do whatever they have to do. So you must have got great satisfaction out of the job to spend 25 years at it. And I'm sure you helped a lot of kids get to the next level, if not to the major league level. Are there people that we would recognize that may have come out of the Wallace?
TJ Rivera. TJ Rivera is one of them.
Good player.
I've got some kids in the minor leagues right now that's got a chance to play, at the major league level. I've got one still at Alabama, which 2 years ago, he was the player of the year in junior college baseball. And he had a stress fracture in his back last year. So I look for him to get drafted pretty high next year. Big, strong hitter. He's a two-way player, but he can really hit it. And,
Nice.
Cleet Harzog, which his dad was a top choice for the Yankees back in the day, Cullen Harzog. And he's got a chance to go with the White Sox. He's with them now, and he's doing really well. So
Nice.
But it's
when you went to college and started as a head coach, very shortly after your retirement, right? It wasn't the end of your baseball career, we'll say.
right.
Did you pattern your coaching style after any manager or coach that you had? Was there somebody that you took more away from than somebody else?
Jim Leland.
It's a good one to follow.
Yes, Roger Craig was a really good manager, and he was an old school manager. But Jim Leland was a really good manager. All around coach. He knew how to coach individual players, if that makes sense. He knew the personalities. He knew who to say something to and get in their face, who not to get in their face. He knew how to pat you on your ass after he got in your face. He was a motivated guy. A lot of that you might have seen on the field some, but in the locker room, he'd tear into your ass when you needed it. But then he'd reward you for it, but he was a very smart manager. His whole coaching staff were really good. David Johnson's coaching staff was really good.
Yeah.
I played around some good guys, but, Lou Piniella was a hell of a manager. I've seen him have rants. It was I've never laughed at a manager so hard, but he was a good manager. He knew how to get his guys to play for him.
I'll just touch on this quickly because you brought up Lou and Jim Leland together. And I talked about this recently. I love Jim Leland, and I think he belongs in the Baseball Hall of Fame. But if he does, so does Lou Piniella, by the way.
That's true.
Right? I think they're both great managers. And you mentioned him getting in players' faces. There's that famous video of him getting into Bonds' face.
Oh, I was there. He got in it.
Yeah.
But Barry needed that. Barry grew up that day. Barry Bonds grew up that day.
I'll bet.
Y'all, a lot of people that don't really understand sports saw it as, damn, why did he do that? But he was going to do that regardless. If it hadn't happened that time, it was going to happen another time. Because Barry was walking around the cockiest, arrogant guy in the world. And he needed that. And I'm sorry, I keep sliding. Anyway, but if Jim Leland hadn't done it, the player would have done it. But it came from the top. And from that day, Barry Bonds changed. It changed his life. I'm just telling you. He needed it. And Barry will tell you that to this day.
Yeah. Great player. And somebody's got a question about Barry, and I'll get to it in a bit. But I want to stay on this topic for just a second. As far as your coaching and career aspirations, you mentioned when you were ending your baseball career that you had coaching and managerial aspirations. You're talking about at the higher levels? Did you ever want to get back to that level?
That's what I'm saying. In pro baseball is what I was going to get back to, stay in pro baseball.
Yeah.
And I looked around me, and I'm a country boy, but I'm smarter. I have a lot of common sense. That's what I've lived off my whole life.
Well,
and so
lacking in the world.
You look around, you look at the managers that were in Major League Baseball, they're all catchers.
Yeah.
Because they understand the game from the side that, defensive side, the hitting side, the pitching side, they understand the game. And I thought I could do a really good job at it. But when I got to Dothan, I was I was welcomed with open arms. I'd played here. I'd done all the things I'd done in my career, and they treated me very well, and they paid me very well, and I can't complain. I mean, I was athletic director for 13 years at that time, and it was just I was known around the league. All my teams hit, and it was fun. Like I said, just the last few years, it just wasn't fun anymore. And the reason I say it wasn't fun, I still enjoyed coaching kids. I may have won 800 something games, but what meant so much to me was when a kid come back and said, "Coach, you were right," because I believed in teaching them life lessons, not just baseball. And you'd be surprised the kids that come back to me. And I just had one yesterday hit me up on Facebook, "Coach, I'm sorry I messed up down there." It just because I was teaching them about what's really going to happen in life. It ain't about this game; it's what's going to happen in life. But what really ticked me off the last couple of years, all these guys have got advisors, or they got this hitting guy, and we go through fall practice. We're going through changing a swing from a high school swing to a college swing to be able to catch up with things and figure things out. And then you get them fixed and you get them finally on the path where they need to be. And they come back at Christmas and they totally change the swing. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I work with my hitting coach back there." And then at the end of the season, well, "Coach, nobody's trying to offer me anything, or has anybody talked to you about me?" I said, "No. Why don't you go ask your hitting coach back at Christmas? Go ask him if he can get you somewhere. I've did everything I could to help you to get you where you need to be." And, they get really pissed off at you. And I just got tired of stuff like that. The last year I coached, I took my team on the field. We were practicing bunt defense and doing stuff. And they couldn't get it right, half of them. And you can't coach but about 10 minutes on certain things. You may have to go change to defense to offense because their mind's not working.
Yeah.
So I just say, "Hey, listen, everybody just drop your gloves. Go get your phone out of your car." And they go, "Well, why, Coach?" I said, "Just go get your phone out of your car. We don't, when we cross the grass, we don't allow phones in the dugouts or anything." Well, half of them had to get it out of their bag. So we go get the phones. And I said, "I want you to Google bunt defense. We're in our positions. We're going to go through it right here with your phone." They said, "Well, Coach, why are you showing me up?" I said, "Because you show me up every single day that you don't come out here and learn something and get it right and get it done. So I know you love your phone, so you can learn it right on your phone." And it just things like that, it's little stuff.
And little stuff important. And again, that's what I talk about. The game today, the professional game today, fundamentals are like non-existent. It seems.
But you got to have them in college.
Yeah, I mean, and if they're not going to have them, I can understand why you would get frustrated. Let me talk a little bit. I want to talk about the game today real quick, but I want to talk about Keith Griffin, who I brought up to you earlier, who you know very well, and I know Rick has got a comment I'll put up in a second. Keith is coaching at. Gosh, I didn't write down where he's coaching. Where's
I know he's in New York.
No.
You're talking about no. He's at Coastal North.
The Coastal North, right. And he's been there for quite some time, and he's coached up here with the Mohawks. Tell us a little about Keith as you would, because Rick is talking. Rick, I know, has met him personally here in Amsterdam, and I thought he meant me first, but he says Mackey's got a lot of Keith in him. No bullshit and colorful language. So,
well, Keith coached there back when I first started. He was coaching there.
Yeah,
and then he left, and now he's back. Keith was a very smart coach. He would pick up any little sign. He would do little things, just unbelievable to get under your skin. He beat me back when we were Division II. We had the number one team going in, and he winds up beating me to go to the World Series. Keith was a very student coach, if you know what I'm saying. He studied everything you did. Picked up your signs. He did everything. Last year, Wallace College, where I coached, was number one in the nation. And Keith went to state tournament and beat him the last game. He went to the regions then, because he went back to Division II. He went to the regionals and got beat. But it was good for him. Keith is leaving after this year. This is his last year at Alabama coaching. He gets tenured after this 10 years. And that's what he was trying to accomplish, to get it finished. So, the insurance is really good. So he'll be able to keep that insurance. But Keith is a very good competitor, and he knows how to read a ball player very well. and he knows pitching very well. So he knows when to make changes, when not to make changes. He's just very good at what he does. He's gifted as a coach, and he knows how to coach. That's all I can say.
I'm sure all these
But
kids.
we've had our little arguments, though. I can tell you that.
Uh,
And we've been thrown out of probably about the same amount of games.
it's funny because it mentioned also that Keith's mellowed out over the last couple of years as
He has mellowed out.
But he was good to get tossed out twice a season before, and he's old school with players as well. And he's got to coach a lot of Division I guys because that's in this league up here, and he's been very successful. As I told you before we came on, I think he's won 9 championships in that league, and it's a really, really good league. I think he did leave there too. He wasn't going to come back. I think in 2020, maybe it was COVID. Maybe they didn't even play. I'm not sure.
Right.
Now that I think about it, but he's been there quite a while and been very successful. And Rick sees obviously a lot of you and him. So, or vice
Keith, I called Keith. You know, he was out. I called him last year when I thought about doing some independent ball, and he was giving me the rundowns and how to handle, pay, the whole 9 yards and everything. And then I texted him when he won it and, congratulated him. But he plays golf with a lot of guys I know over where he's from.
I got to back up for a second about this whole the community college thing and then changing kids. And I meant to go there right after we were talking about it, and I lost my train of thought. I apologize. It's not the same sport, but have you ever watched Last Chance U on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
It's about college football at the community college level, and it's kids failed basically, or they don't have the grades or whatever to get to a Division I school, and it's all about them getting back to a Division I school.
Right.
And the attitudes that you see on these kids is just, it's unbelievable. The sense of entitlement is there.
Oh, yeah. That's the worst thing. Entitlement.
You've been to the top level. You failed. You're here with your last chance. That's why it's called Last Chance U. Did you see those types of kids that?
Oh yeah, you see them every day.
This was their last.
You're always trying to get the best players you can get, right? So you always keep 3 or 4 scholarships because kids are going to flunk out. Something's going to happen, and that's exactly right. They come back and they got the attitude that they're all this, and they couldn't even make this. Like Mississippi State, I got a couple pictures from there, and they were the most arrogant guys. And when they didn't get the pitch, they were pissed. It really brings your team down. It really does. So you have to watch what you get.
I could see that. Before I let you go, what are your thoughts on today's game? I followed Jeff Fry. You probably you recognize Jeff Fry.
Yeah.
Usually you're with Rangers and some other teams, and he's really every day he's got posts up that I'm right on the same page with him. It sounds like you probably would be too. But one thing he's really been harping on recently is the knee down with the catchers. You're a catcher. Is that the way you would teach your kids to catch?
No, I like the knee up. I think if I'm not mistaken, throwing people out or down in the game. And what I understand is they're more worried about getting that pitch than throwing that guy out because there's so many strikeout guys these days.
Yeah.
But to me, it's just you're seeing balls go by them. Some guys are really good at it. Don't get me wrong. Some guys are really good at it, but some guys stink. You're seeing more pass balls. I think I was a guy that liked the legs up. You can get down to the ball, you can block the ball, you can move. Because if you're on one knee, that ball a little outside, it's not going. There's no way you can get it except glove it.
Yeah.
But I like both legs up.
Yeah, Jeff will post videos every night about pass balls going by guys.
He also posted about Judge's, hitting instructor. He rips, huh?
All those hitting instruction videos he puts up, I'm like, who the heck would think this is a good?
It's like he's playing cricket.
But people are, people are paying these people though. And you talked about throwing guys out, and to the one knee thing too. About I think a lot of it is about framing pitches that it's easier to do there,
right,
from that position. But he's stealing a strike here and there that much more important than throwing a guy out at second base. And
I don't know. I remember catching Doc Gooden one time, and I was playing well. I was throwing well, and he had that high leg kick. And I walked out to the mound one day, and I said, "Doc, listen, if you just give me a little time, I'll throw that guy out." He says, "Hell with that. I'm going to strike these 2 guys out." And sure enough, he damn struck him out. He didn't care. They never said another word to him about it.
I keep talking about the changes in Major League Baseball, and again, it seems like almost every major change since 1968 is to benefit of offenses, right?
That's right.
Longer the mound, DHs, smaller ballparks, better bats, and harder baseballs. Blah blah blah. Now, I mean, stolen bases are up, but it's artificially blown up because you can only throw over to first base twice, and then you got a free
right.
pass, basically. The baselines are, and people say, oh, it's a couple inches, whatever. Well,
2 inches on both bags. That's 4 inches.
Bang, bang. How many bang, bang plays you see in your career baseball? Those inches matter. So the catchers now are at a disadvantage along with the pitchers as far as stopping those base runners. I mean, I think baseball's really gone, especially under Rob Manfred, have really gone the wrong direction here with a lot of the diametrically changing the way the game is played.
Oh yeah. You can't take nobody out no more. You can't get run over at home plate. Just
how many times do you get run over home plate?
Oh, I got smoked 3 or 4 times.
You think they should change that rule, even though, I mean, it's the Buster Posey rule, of course.
That's right. I mean, I got hit 2 or 3 times. Kevin Reimer broke my scapula when I was in Seattle in spring training. Didn't have to run me over. Then Presley run me over. In the minor leagues, I got run over, and I was like, here's another run scored. I had a concussion. It's safety. Everything's about safety now.
It would, even given that, Mackey, do you think would you rather a game be played the way it was played with you or the way it's played today as far as catchers?
The way it was played with me.
Yeah.
I mean, with exception, you should be able to run. If he's blocking that plate, you should be able to take him out.
Exactly.
I mean, no question about it. I got blindsided. You see it blindsided. I mean, you could really get hurt that way. But no, I wouldn't change it.
Are there any rule changes that you like? I mean, the pitch clock.
I think taking somebody out at second base, I think you should be able to just wipe them out. If you take too long, you get wiped out.
God, I remember as a kid watching Willie Randolph get sent into left field.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
And we just got up and played,
That's right.
Oh, I just don't get it. How about the pitch clock? I mean, I sped games up, but sometimes it's just sped up a boring game to 2 hours instead of 3 hours. But
I don't really believe in that.
Is it hurt
pitchers get in rhythms.
Yeah.
They have certain things they need to do to get themselves, and I don't know if it's true, but they're talking about, the reason they're having more arm injuries because of the clock. There have to be some more studies on that, but
yeah, it
does speed the game up. But I don't think they should have done that. 25 seconds would have been better.
I wouldn't want any clock, because the good thing about baseball, there was no clock, right?
Well,
that was a great thing.
Clock on hitters, you got clocks on everybody.
Well, here's the thing, I was going to get to that too real quick. First of all, there's rules in the books that can speed the game up if the umpires enforce them, and I think they just want to take the onus off the umpires. That's why they did things like this. Right. But with these rules, some great moments in baseball would never have happened. We talked about the 88 Dodgers.
Right.
And that bat that was so dramatic with Kirk Gibson in the World Series couldn't happen today.
No, it wouldn't happen.
Because he took himself out of how many times he go out of the box and try to get his body ready to go back in?
That's right.
Half a minute. It felt like forever that a bat took.
Well, you wouldn't see a guy like that playing today.
Well, that's a good point.
If they'd got a shot, they'd have been out for a month.
He'd have been out I put a picture up last night. I put a picture up of Nolan Ryan after he got hit in the face with a line drive.
Right.
All over, and he pitched another 4 innings, a complete game or whatever. That couldn't happen today.
No, it couldn't happen.
Guys are soft. Anyway, I got a couple comments I probably didn't get to. Let me just look at it real quick before I let you go. We talked about that. I might have got to a lot of these. Danny, thank you so much. Danny's my most again, all my followers are just tremendous. Rick and all you guys, AC, all of you. But Danny's my most dedicated because he's getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning out there in California to watch my show live. He's the best. So we talked about Keith. Hold on a second. I know I got something here I didn't get to. Rick says that's why I'm sitting home listening to you. Retired kids are not the same, even though I agree. I've got a few months to go. a few times ago, before I could retire, a little time to go. But people are not the same for sure in any walk of life, much less sports. I think it's just
That's right.
a microcosm of society in general. Who's your favorite catcher other than yourself, and who's your favorite catcher today?
Today, I don't know. I don't really have one.
How about all time?
My best guy that I thought was really don't get a whole lot of highlight stuff is Charlie O'Brien. Was the best catcher I've ever been around. I mean, the best glove you ever seen. When you got guys that catch guys, just they're gonna catch that day, no matter who's pitching, no matter what, they're gonna catch their guy.
Yeah,
that tells you something.
Yeah,
think about it. I mean, there's a reason why they catch. But Charlie Brown had the best hands. I mean, he had quick feet. I could sit there and just watch him just play with the ball. Unbelievable.
You play with him with the Mets, or
I played with him with the Mets.
Yeah,
played against him in AA ball.
Yeah, I remember him being a really good defensive catcher.
Very good.
We talked a little bit about Bonds. Your thoughts overall about Barry Bonds' career and how it played out? I mean, Barry Bonds. To preface this a little bit, I think Bonds should be in a Hall of Fame, warts and all. But he was a Hall of Famer before he ever did steroids. In my mind, you played with him.
He was a Hall of Famer, and Barry Bonds' plate coverage was unbelievable. I've talked to guys through 95 miles an hour. Said the farther you threw it in, the quicker he turned on it. He had some of the quickest hands. He used a short bat. He was right on top of the dish, and I don't care how many steroids he used. He still had to hit them baseballs.
Oh, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, he was a phenomenal player. You know, the problem with Barry back in the day was his attitude with the media. They hated him because he acted like an ass. And it's cost him. But one day he's going to go in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he was a great player. He had a great arm in the outfield, knew how to play the outfield, became a good teammate, has become a good person. You know, he lived in an era where it's not only Barry Bonds' fault and the other guy's fault to use steroids. Everybody knew what was going on.
Yeah,
it was about money.
Yeah,
and when the shit hit the fan, the players are the one that suffer. And he just happened to be one of those players that suffered. Yeah, you know, I played against Mark McGuire my whole life in minor leagues because I was coming up with California.
Yeah,
he was a big dude anyway. I mean, he could hit it. You know, guys like him that have to be so successful, they have to stay up with the other guy, you know, and it's a shame it happened. I mean, there were some great ball players that might not ever go to Hall of Fame because of it.
Yeah, I think they all ought to go, but again, put the story on their plaque, you know.
That's right.
You know, I don't know who did and didn't do it, so that's why I have a hard time leaving them out. Right? So, oops, that's different. Who's your crazy? Crick's always got this comment. So, who's the craziest guy you ever played with?
Dave Cohn and Brett Saberhagen.
That's funny. Brett Saberhagen said that about you. No, I'm just kidding. They were a little wacky, huh?
Roger McDowell too. Roger McDowell did a lot of practical jokes.
Yeah, I think Brett actually mentioned Roger a few times. What was the deal when you were on the team with the whole bleach thing?
With the what now?
They had the bleach in the squirt gun. I think it was Cone.
Yeah, but I vaguely remember it. But I remember it going on.
I mean, it was probably just something innocent that got totally blown out of proportion here in New York, I'm sure. Got to have great hands, play catcher. If a wide receiver in football is an athlete for good hands and a catcher, I think AC's still defending his comment about. I'm not saying that Mackey and other catchers aren't great athletes. I'm just saying they're not always the most all-around athlete on a team.
I think receivers wide receivers and catchers have great hands.
Absolutely.
I mean, I had good hands. I just didn't have speed a wide receiver has.
Yeah, I certainly am not knocking the athletic ability of Mackey Sasser or any catcher, AC, just to be clear. It shouldn't be players who suffer because it wasn't just the players. Well, I guess he's saying they were being encouraged to do steroids and whatnot.
They weren't being encouraged, but they wasn't being negative about it either. You know what I mean? It was hush hush.
People turned their heads, right? And
yeah, exactly.
They didn't see what was happening, so it's sad. I I guess Chris Efgrave, one of my he's in Toronto. He's one of the great followers. I know he's had some internet problems. He's not here, so I'll ask the question he usually asks as we end this interview. In Florida today, what is Mackey Sasser doing for fun in your leisure time? What music do you listen to? Or are you reading? Do for fun.
I read a little bit. You know, I'm busy with my grandkids and doing things with them and my family, and I play a lot of golf. When I get off this right here, I'm going to walk out on this dock and go catch some redfish.
Oh, nice.
In the rain. So just doing what I do. I travel. I go to my youngest daughter's at University of Alabama, so I'll be up there for the Alabama-Georgia game. Pete Shirk, if you remember, Pete Shirk's flying in to him and his wife flying in to meet me there. So we're gonna have a big weekend there, and then I do my fantasy camp stuff with the Mets, and still do that, and just do a little bit of traveling with my wife. So we just kind of hang out and enjoy life.
What's the music you're listening to these days?
I listen to a lot of country music. I don't like all that.
That's what I like to hear.
Country music is a little simpler.
I love it myself.
Like some soft 80s or 90s, just that kind of stuff.
Cool. Well, Danny says wonderful interview and a great way to start out the weekend with you, Mackey. And I agree. I appreciate you coming on, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. Mackey, just hang out. Well, I'll say goodbye to you off the air real quick, guys. I want to say I appreciate all you coming in, all your comments. I thank the groups that allow me to share this later on today. And we'll be back Sunday with the Stream of Consciousness. And we'll see you then, guys. There's a lot of college football to talk about as always. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you Sunday. Keith Engle for One-on-One with Keith Engle. Bye-bye.